I thought Scott Morrison was, oh gee, they just whack him wherever they can now. I thought he was absolutely right to say, let's send these people, we're evacuating from Wuhan to Christmas Island. We've got those fantastic facilities there. Every journalist I speak to who's been there says, look, they're pretty good. They're certainly better than regional hospitals, some regional hospitals. But of course, Scott, people are taking a whack at Morrison wherever they can, aren't they?
Oh, exactly right. Look, I think no matter what he did, there would have been criticism. But I can tell you, I don't think, well, not the people I talk to out there, no one is going to say, oh, go softer on coronavirus at all. He's gone to the Christmas Island option, and I think people are saying that's the right option. And as this gets worse and worse, that looks like a far more sensible decision than some of the softer decisions being made and some of those softer options that his critics were claiming he should have done. This is a major crisis out there, and he's gone and said, look, we're going to take be very clear about this. We are not going to risk Australia. We're going to do this and send them to Christmas Island for 2 weeks to make sure we are not bringing this virus into Australia.
Well, Nathan, as he said, I think Scott Morrison said it, or someone said, not seeing any of the state premiers putting their hands up saying, oh, we'll empty out one of our hospitals and you can use that. So.
Well, exactly right. And in fact, the WA Premier decided to play a bit of politics. Mark McGowan actually complained that he wasn't told that the people were going to Christmas Island. But look, I think Morrison's actually perhaps learnt a little bit from what's happened before Christmas, the bushfire, his response to the bushfires. I think he's not mucking around. He's getting in front of it, and he's going to be as hard and as fast as he can in dealing with this.
So let's take a look at what is happening in the United Kingdom. We've got a report from Sky News in the UK, and they show you where the people who've returned from China to the UK in the last 24 hours are going to be housed. Let's take a look.
And you would imagine that it would have probably been quite an unsettled night, an 11-hour flight followed by a pretty long coach journey from RAF Brize Norton in Oxfordshire to here on the Wirral. They're staying in the accommodation blocks, which you can see behind me there. They're currently being pressure washed at the moment. Not quite sure whether that is any sort of medical process or decontamination process, or whether it's just because the cameras are here and the scene is being tidied up effectively for the aesthetic appeal. So that's what it looks like on the outside. We've got exclusive pictures to Sky News which shows what it's like on the inside of that building as well. Medical staff, NHS staff clearly wearing masks and so on, walking around the building. It's an accommodation block that's normally used by nurses, junior doctors and so on. The rooms are all en suite. Last night we saw moves being made to try and make the 83 British nationals who are in there as comfortable as possible. Some of them have young children with them as well, so it's not going to be too great for them to be isolated in one place for 2 weeks as part of this quarantine procedure. But last night we saw various food and drinks and even games consoles to entertain the younger members of that group of 83 being brought in here. It's a process that is being undertaken not because these people have got the coronavirus, but because they've been in an area where it is prevalent.
There you are. That was Fraser Maud from Sky UK. So, Nathan, good facilities, nice new fresh nurses' quarters, but of course it's going to be hard if you've got little kids to keep them cooped up there for 14 days. You've got 3 children. It wouldn't be pretty.
No, it's not going to be fun for families, that's for sure. It's going to be hard work, in fact. But look, it's better to take these precautions and to be safe. I mean, you have to look at the risk, and you know the risk could be just appalling. But let's say that these people are all fine, and let's hope they are. Let's be safer rather than sorry down the track.
Yeah, so I thought it was important. And in the United States, they were taken to a military facility in California, but one person, and they were only going to, the first reports were that they were only going to be in quarantine for 3 days, but the option was to stay for 14 days, that sort of self-isolation. But one person broke out, they caught him. So they've changed the rules there a little bit. Let's take a look at the advice that came out of the United States. And I can tell you, I think this is really what forced Australia's hand, and it was good. Here it is.
The White House hasn't been the swiftest to react to the spread of coronavirus, but now its response is among the toughest.
Foreign nationals, other than immediate family of U.S. citizens and permanent residents who have traveled in China within the last 14 days, will be denied entry into the United States appreciates China's efforts and coordination with public health officials across the globe and continues to encourage the highest levels of transparency. It is likely that we will continue to see more cases in the United States in the coming days and weeks, including some limited person-to-person transmission. The American public can be assured the full weight of the U.S. government is working to safeguard the health and safety of the American people.
The US has only a handful of confirmed cases of the virus, but 195 Americans who were evacuated earlier this week from the Chinese city of Wuhan are in quarantine, the first time such a federal order has been in place since a smallpox alert in the 1960s. Several US airlines have suspended flights to China, and the State Department has issued the highest do-not-travel advisory to deter visits to the country. Americans arriving home from China will be funneled through 7 airports which have the capability of screening for signs of the virus. Scientists at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases near Washington are among those trying to find a vaccine. In declaring a public health emergency, officials have said they'd rather be accused of overreacting than underreacting.
We still have a low risk to the American public, but we want to keep it at a low risk. And because there are so many unknowns here, we're going to take the action that the Secretary will describe in a temporary way to make sure we mitigate as best as we possibly can this risk.
In South Korea, more than 300 people who'd returned from China have been sent to a designated quarantine facility as the international response to the crisis becomes more organised. Ian Woods, Sky News.
There you are, Ian Woods, Sky News. There you are. That's what's happening around the world, and there is no doubt that that has had a big impact on what has happened in Australia today, and indeed I think with Qantas.